The ancient Romans loved olive oil. Do you know who else loves oil? Well, yes. But for this comparison, I'm thinking of P. Diddy. When the feds raided P. Diddy's home, they seized 1,000 bottles of baby oil. Let's use that as a reference. We'll call the equivalent of 1,000 bottles of baby oil a P. Diddum, and the equivalent of one bottle of baby oil P. Didit. Using P. Diddums and P. Didits as the scale, how much oil was the average Roman getting through? And when scaled across the entire empire, how enormous was the olive oil operation? We know how much olive oil Romans consumed because some ancient Romans got roasted alive in the town of Herculaneum during the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, burning all their flesh, but leaving their bones well preserved. To paraphrase some of the researchers, the bones were baked and not burned. Because the bones were baked, the researchers were able to analyze the collagen in the bones and further able to deduce which foods the Romans were eating. They concluded that 12% of total calories and the main source of fat was olive oil. They further conclude that personal consumption was at 20 liters a year, which is the equivalent of 3/4 of a pea didit a week per person. Olive oil was such an important part of life, there were 5 different grades to cover all situations, the pronunciation of which I will now ruin. Ex albis ulivis, viridi, maturum, padicum, and cibarium, varying in value and purpose. The oil wasn't just consumed. At the lower grade, it was used as fuel in oil lamps, and for the upper classes with the upper grades as a soap of sorts. At the bathhouse in the unctuarium, the upper class would be oiled, massaged, and then scraped using special purpose knives. This makes me think of 2 aspects. Firstly, as this was long before soap was invented, everything must have been amazingly oily, just like the futility of trying to clean an oily frying pan without dish soap. Even though they were scraped, surely they'd be oily for days. Everything they touched would become oily: door handles, tools, pens, clothes, everything. And secondly, surely some of the fair maidens of ancient Rome would sell their olive oil scrapings, just like bathwater in the modern day, likely becoming a 6th grade of olive oil, with lots of possible branding opportunities: extra virgin, Venus's vintage, Caesar's dressing, Apollo's afterglow, Cupid's nectar. Anyway, supplying the 5 primary grades of olive oil to the citizens of Rome was a mammoth task. During the 2nd century AD, the main port, Portus, was unloading around 80 ships containing all types of cargo at any time, requiring a workforce of 2,500 men for the loading and unloading of goods. Using the 3/4 of a p didit per person per week from the Herculaneum research, just the port workers require 2 p didyms of olive oil a week. The container of choice for transporting olive oil was a Dressel 20, whereas other kinds of containers for other kinds of goods could be readily reused or recycled into concrete, roof tiles, or gutters. The Dressel 20s were single use. Because of the transportation and storage of olive oil over long periods of time, the interior would be coated in a thick layer of solidified olive oil residue. It was uneconomical to clean the amphora well enough to allow for their reuse, and if not completely clean, they'd spoil the next batch of olive oil. Therefore, they were smashed up and dumped in an enormous and organized landfill, Monte Testaccio, one of the largest of the ancient world, covering an area of 2 hectares. In the modern day, it has a circumference of nearly a kilometer and stands 35 meters high. It was probably considerably higher in ancient times. It's estimated to contain the remains of 53 million amphorae. Now that we've covered some of the incredible scale of the logistics of moving olive oil around ancient Rome, let's get back to the pedidum scale. Rome in the 2nd century AD had a population of 1 million people, which would need 20 million liters of olive oil, better known as 40,000 p-didyms a year. 40,000 p-didyms a year is 110 p-didyms a day. Coincidentally, the same volume of olive oil it would take to completely fill 24 modern Fiat 500s. Scale that out across the Roman Empire of the same period, where there were 60 million people, leads us to a total daily consumption of 6,600 p didyms of olive oil. Thanks for watching. Please reach out in the comments if there are any other oddities of history you'd like this channel to cover.